So, fellow sake enjoyer Billiam put out a video recently talking about why iPads are great for rhythm gaming. And he pointed out something I was not aware of. But before we dive into that, I want to give you guys some context. Let's go back in time to about September 2023. I was in the market for a tablet, and I knew it was going to be specifically for rhythm gaming. And to be real with you, I already knew it was going to be an iPad, since I'm way too deep in the Apple ecosystem. But the question was, which iPad? It really just came down to the 3rd generation iPad Pro 11-inch and the 5th gen iPad Air, both with the M1 chip. Technically speaking, they were basically the exact same product, except the Pro was 11 inches at basically $800, and the Air was 10.9 inches at roughly $600. And you're probably thinking, is 0.1 inches really worth that? Yes, 100% do not let anyone tell you that 0.1 inches is not big. It is huge. It is ginormous. Every inch counts. Okay, but seriously, for the purposes of rhythm gaming, the biggest difference between the two were the screens. And I'm not talking about resolution, brightness, or any of that. I'm talking about the refresh rate. The iPad Air comes with a 60Hz screen, which means that the iPad Air will only display up to 60 FPS, or frames per second, which is pretty good. I would say that this is the bare minimum for any rhythm game to have an enjoyable experience. Now, the iPad Pro, on the other hand, has a 120Hz refresh rate, meaning if your game supports it, you can be playing up to 120 FPS. Now, the difference between frames per second and refresh rate is that FPS is mainly based off of your system's performance. In this case, both iPads are internally the same. They can easily both push out 120 frames. But the iPad Air's screen will only refresh 60 times per second. So even if the game is rendering 120 FPS, the screen just can't keep up and will only be showing you half the frames. Now, this was a deal breaker for me. Obviously, if I'm going to be buying a tablet to basically be dedicated to rhythm gaming, it would make sense to splurge a little to get the one with the 120Hz screen. Now, let's fast forward to now. Thanks to Billiam's video, I have found out that Project Sakai, aka the sole reason that I bought an iPad in the first place, does not support 120 FPS. Yeah, so the whole reason on spending the extra $200 or so, and I can't even utilize it. Now, you're probably wondering, why is 120 FPS such a big deal? And to that, my answer is, it's a luxury. Going from 60 to 120 frames is doubling the frame rate. Wait, hold on. Yeah, 120, 60, yep, that checks out. 120 is double. So you're basically being fed twice the amount of information. In other words, it's easier to follow the notes coming down the lane. Playing other rhythm games that support 120 FPS, I've been able to boost up my note speed without feeling overwhelmed. An example of this, but in the other direction, is when I'm watching my friends stream on TikTok. And it's funny seeing the comments freak out over how fast the note speed is. To be fair though, she do be reading pretty fast. But the fact that the stream is sometimes running at 30 FPS, the note speed is exaggerated because you're only receiving half the information. Wait, hold on. 120 divided by 30 is 4. Yeah, so you're only receiving a quarter of the information that she's seeing in person. And also there's the fact that each frame is being rendered at twice the speed it normally is. You get less motion blur. And let's be real here, 120 just looks really nice. Now, I'm not saying that 60 FPS is bad or that you have to upgrade to 120. 60 is still really good, and honestly, if you aren't reading super fast, you won't even really notice a huge difference between the two. But think of this like cars. You've got a very modest but still dependable 60 FPS, and then you've got the slightly more expensive 120 FPS. From the outside looking in, they're both cars that do the same thing. They'll get you from point A to point B. Most people will take the cheaper option because, it gets the job done. But for me personally, if I had the choice between the two, You bet your ass I'm taking the one with that's turbocharged, got the air suspension, and the 3-piece JDM wheels. Rip my Lexus. At the end of the day, it makes no difference when you're just going to the drive-thru at 3 in the morning, but it's a little more enjoyable for me, and that's what I mostly care about. Now, I know I kind of got a bit off topic, but going back to Project Sakai. Unfortunately, the game does not support 120 FPS. But, and this is a huge but, the Japanese version does. And that's because during the 3rd anniversary update, they had a huge UI overhaul and added the option to switch to 120 FPS. Even though I play on both servers, I've always just mained playing on EN because of all the cards and resources I've collected over the years. But after playing Project Sakai at 120 FPS, I'm highly considering switching, or at least start filming more YouTube content in JP. But good news for the EN server, the 3rd anniversary update will be coming to us later this year. So if you also have an iPad Pro with a 120Hz screen, you'll be able to utilize playing in 120 FPS as well. Isn't that exciting? Anyways, that's all I got for today. Hopefully you've learned something new. Leave a comment down below on what your thoughts are on 120 FPS, and if it's made a difference for you in Project Sakai or even other games that aren't rhythm games. Don't forget to leave a like on the video because my cat actually eats likes. This is her. You are feeding her if you like this video. Please don't let her starve. Look at how cute she is. And subscribe if you haven't done so already. My name is Jeff, or you can call me Loud Loser. I do rhythm game content occasionally, and here's a video YouTube thinks you might enjoy.